Hi everybody, this is a chicken education video. Some people may not like the content, I don't know. Seems like there's a lot of fights over this particular subject. First I want to mention that for a period of time I was not getting any notification from YouTube over my videos, and there was a lot of comments. It's like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I'm thinking, I got no notifications. I went back through and there were no notifications of these comments. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. I don't know how they do this, why they do this, that there will be a certain period and all of a sudden there'll be no notifications, and all of a sudden they'll start up again. So I'm not ignoring you. If I haven't put a comment, a heart, or commented or anything, or replied to you, it's just because YouTube didn't notify me. So it's just YouTube shenanigans. You know, Facebook does it too. I don't know what the heck's going on with these platforms. But anyway, subject of worming chickens. Now, when this crisis started, everybody kept saying, oh, get you a few chickens in your backyard. A lot of these people who are getting these chicks, they probably don't even realize that chickens sometimes need periodic worming. Just like their dog, just like their cat. They need worming. And a lot of people are into the holistic and the all-natural, which is well and good, if it works. I'm all for natural if it works. But there are a couple of things that, one works minimally, and one is debatable if it works at all. And I want to address these two things. The first natural solution to worming, people say, pumpkin seed. Give your chickens pumpkin seed. They're talking raw, unsalted. You don't want to go and get out of the bulk foods bin salted pumpkin seeds and feed your chickens. You don't want them eating salt, okay? But they say give your chickens pumpkin seed. Well, the reason is that there is a substance in pumpkin seed and squash seeds called curcurbit. And curcurbit has been known to paralyze some worms so that they can be expelled. However, how many pumpkin seeds, how much, how often, it's not the cutting of the seeds. They don't cut doesn't cut worms up. They're talking about the substance contained in pumpkin seed. And they don't mention that you give chickens a bunch of pumpkin seed and then you're supposed to do what they call a molasses flush. Molasses dissolved in water so that they poop all the paralyzed worms out. However, the problem with pumpkin seed is this. Pumpkin seed only paralyzes roundworms, and not all roundworms. Chickens get more than roundworms. They get gapeworm, which can breed in the throat and actually choke them. They get capillaria. They get tapeworms. Pumpkin seed doesn't touch any of those. And they are a threat. They can be a threat. Now, penned chickens get more worms than free-range chickens. Chickens that regularly free-range on good forage, not on a dirt pen, but something in my eye. They free-range on good forage. If you got pastures and pasture and woods and everything like I've got, this is good forage here. So there is a limit to what pumpkin seed can do. And I also know from observation, not all of them will eat pumpkin seeds. Not all my chickens will eat them. Some of them skip over them. I regularly give them pumpkin squash, half a melon. Half a squash. I'll sit it out there, and they will pick at them. A lot of them will slurp those seeds down, and other ones just avoid them entirely. So how do you know they're getting it? You don't. It's not like a medication that you can monitor and regulate. Now, there is an article that Amy Fewell of Fewell Family Homestead, F-E-W-E-L-L, cited. It was a study, a scientific study about pumpkin seed curcurbit is an anti-parasitic in livestock, and I will link it in the description box for you to read. It's a very scholarly kind of, scientific study. Not the easiest reading in the world, but it basically tells you that the pumpkin seed will not give you as much of the medicinal properties unless in the raw seed as it will if it is made into a tincture and administered. So there's more to it than just, oh yeah, pumpkin seed worms your birds, because it kind of really doesn't. It's really only like a mild preventative. It may knock back the worm load. If you've got birds that are penned 24/7 and never get out on green forage, you're more likely to have roundworms in your flock than if they free range like mine do. Yeah, I'm freezing to death. It is cold today, and I'm in a sweater. I'm back in my fall clothes again here. Let's see. So let's see. What else did I want to say? Healthy chickens can carry minor worm loads. Worming your flock might need to be done periodically depending on the situation. And of course your powers of observation. If they're looking ratty and unthrifty and they just don't look right, or if you actually see piles of worms and poop, it's time to worm your birds, and don't go for pumpkin seed. If there's a pile of roundworms in your chicken's poop, skip the pumpkin seed and go for the wormer, the actual wormer. We'll get to what that is in a minute. Okay, but the next natural wormer is not even a wormer, not really. Diatomaceous earth. Oh my gosh, I'm freezing. It is so cold. Diatomaceous earth has been touted as worming your birds, and they suggest you put it in the feed at a 2% ratio to the feed. Diatomaceous earth is a desiccant. It is made to suck up moisture. So if you sprinkle it in your feed, not at 2%, but just sprinkle it in your feed, it may suck up some moisture. If you get some moisture in there, it'll clump together and draw the moisture out. Diatomaceous earth is made up of, silica, like sand and quartz and, that kind of stuff. Little glass, almost like microscopic glass. And it has minerals, trace amounts of minerals and such. So it may have some minor benefit for consumption, but we're talking about wormers, okay? Somebody said, if you want to start a fight on a chicken forum, talk about diatomaceous earth and worming. It's almost like fermented feed. It starts the same fights. I'm not on the boat. I'm not on the train with that one either. But let me tell you, I do use DE. Okay, I've used DE for 14 years, ever since I've had chickens. I sprinkle it under the roost, especially in very wet, protracted periods of weather. And I put it in the nest boxes, in the bottom of the nest boxes. I may put some in there. I may dust a broody hen's tushy and under her wings with that, because she doesn't dust bathe as often. But because it does grind up the exoskeleton, soft exoskeleton, soft-bodied bugs. It does destroy them. It does desiccate them and dry them out and kill them. Not like a poison, but it tears up their exoskeleton. Well, worms don't have an exoskeleton. They don't have that. So, I wish I could find it. I have been looking for it and I can't find it. There was a report. Some birds died. They were sent for necropsies, which is an animal autopsy. They were sent for necropsies. These were birds that were fed 2% DE in their feed, as a regular matter of course. They found that their intestines were very dried out. Intestines need to be lubricated. They need to be wet. The whole inside of an animal's wet. Their intestines were dried out, and they had a roundworm load at the same time. So the problem is DE loses its cutting power when it's wet. It loses a lot of its cutting power when it's wet. The inside of an animal is wet, It's supposed to be wet. It needs to be wet. You don't want dried out intestines, right? That's a health hazard. That's a health problem. So I would say there could be a problem with using DE, especially if you use too much of it. Now, I sprinkle a little, maybe a half cup in a 50-pound bag of feed and stir it around just in case there are weevil eggs and weevils hatch. Because, when you get things from a feed store, sometimes you don't know what's in there. Now, if I open a feed bag and it's full of weevils, I take it back. It's not the same thing as bugs out in the ground. People say, oh, it's bugs, it's extra protein. No. If there's a weevil infestation, if there's a bunch of weevils in your feed, what that means is the nutritional value is in the toilet and you have just paid full price for crap feed. That's what that means. So, there's a problem with the pumpkin seed. It is a mild preventative. It may keep the roundworm load down, but it touches no other worms. It will not touch. Actually, the more dangerous worms, it's not going to touch them. It's healthy. I mean, feed your birds pumpkin seed, for goodness sake. Yeah, it's healthy. The vitamin A and all that in the pumpkin and the squash and stuff that you feed them is healthy. But some birds won't eat the pumpkin seed. Now, if you have a tincture that you've made from that, this was more concentrated, you might have better luck with that. But I would never rely. If you see a big pile of roundworms and poop, it is time to pull out an actual wormer. And the wormer that I use is a broad spectrum wormer. It was recommended by a breeder who's been breeding as long as I've been alive almost. And he's an NPIP tester for the state of Georgia. And he said valbazen orally, which you squirt it into their mouth with a needleless syringe, valbazen orally is probably the best wormer on the market because it kills every worm a chicken can get, including these other harder types to kill. Plus, it doesn't kill them like that. What it does is it starves out these worms over a several-day period so that if they have a big worm load, which none of mine have, I think one time I had a chicken that pooped it and went, gosh, look at the worms in there. I don't know why she had the worms. Nobody else seemed to, but it could be something she ate that had worm eggs in it. Who knows? But it starves them out so that if the chicken has a big worm load, it doesn't clog her system with dead worms, because that can actually block off intestines. If they have a huge roundworm load and all of a sudden they're all dead at one time, they can actually clog up the system and kill your chicken. That's an extreme case, but that's why valbazen is a good wormer. It's easy to use. It can be expensive, but a big bottle goes a very long way, especially if you don't have a lot of chickens. And it does keep past the expiration date, so like most things do. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. But yeah, diatomaceous earth. There are some studies that show it might be effective in killing internal and external parasites. I know DE is good on external parasites. The first rooster, the only bird I ever bought and brought here was my first rooster. He came, he had a bad case of lice. And when I found it, I started sprinkling him with DE. He was separate. He had his own cage. He was in a dog cage in my bathroom in the basement. And I took all his bedding out. I sprinkled the bedding with DE. I sprinkled him with DE, and it killed all the lice because they're on the outside. And so I know it kills lice, but of course you don't want it in their eyes, and you don't breathe in clouds of the stuff. It can be dangerous if you put too much in there because it makes a giant cloud, and you can't get mite, like little mites that might be around their head or something. You can't get that around their face. So valbazen worms, and if you want something for lice and mites on the outside that's not powdery, get you some ivermectin, pour on, and put drops on the skin of their neck. But that doesn't worm very well here for me. I used that for years at the beginning, and it ceased to be effective anymore. But valbazen is a really good wormer, broad spectrum. It's a safe wormer. The way it acts, it's a very safe wormer. You know, natural for the sake of natural. I mean, it's all good, well and good if it does work, but if it really is not effective, your health of your bird's more important than some principle of all natural this or all natural that. The health of your bird's more important. And a really bad worm load can kill your bird. A small worm load on a healthy bird who's healthy otherwise is not going to kill it. However, if it's a heavy worm load, you need to bring out the big guns and get rid of that. And I would say do not use the piperazine that's only for roundworms, because that kills them like that. And if you've got a heavy worm load in your chicken, it's going to kill them all at one time, and it could actually be detrimental. So I just use Valbazins, all I do. And I don't worm my birds very often. I watch their poop for anything, any signs of roundworms. If somebody's acting off, if they're sick, you don't want to worm them. I mean, if they're sick, you don't want to worm them. But if they're looking a little bit under the weather or something, you think there might be a problem with worms or something, you know, bring out a real wormer. Pumpkin seeds are healthy and great, and they might kill some of the roundworms, but if there's other worms involved here, it's not going to help them. And to ignore gapeworm or something like that is very dangerous. So that's my take on worming. And you know, I know people say, oh, well, I swear by this, I swear by that. Well, you know, you can't know that. If you haven't done a study with your own birds, what if they didn't have a big worm load in the first place, and you're going, and you're giving them pumpkin seed, and you're going, I swear by pumpkin seed for a wormer, because my birds don't have worms. Well, what if they didn't have worms in the first place? And you're thinking you're worming them with pumpkin seed when they didn't have worms. How do you know it's the pumpkin seed? How do you know that's what's doing anything? What if they didn't have worms anyway? My first flocks, I didn't worm my birds for 2 years. I had birds for 2 years before I pulled out a wormer. And that was because I saw a worm in one rooster's poop, and I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to have to start pulling out a wormer here. So unless you know they had worms to start with, and then you know they didn't, you can take a fecal sample to your vet and have a float done. I've never done that. But unless you know what they had before, and then you gave them pumpkin seed, and then you test after, you don't really know it's doing anything. So look at the scientific study, and if you can make heads or tails of it. But anyway, I do want to shout out to the Fuel Family Homestead. They have a nice article on worming too, and the article was linked in her article. The scientific study was linked in her article. So I'm gonna post the scientific study in the description box for you if you want to look at it later. But you know, what's best for your birds? Not what's best for some principle that you've decided you're going to follow with your flock. Well, what's best for your chickens? That's what you need to think about. Just my humble opinion. So it's freezing, and I'm going to go inside before another big gust of wind hits me. We're expecting frost this weekend. Crazy. I cannot believe it in May they're expecting frost here. That's unheard of here, as far as I know, at this late date. So, we will catch y'all later. Oh, yeah, little chicken news. You remember my black Delaware Barred Rock Cross Wendy? I always call Wendy the Witch. How nobody likes Wendy. Well, Wendy's been going on the nest on and off for a week or more and producing no egg. So I'm thinking something's going on with Wendy internally. She is 6. She's Atlas's sister. She was raised with him. She hatched with him. So she's 6 years old, which is not ancient. I mean, I've got birds who are more than twice her age, but you know, it's individual. So, and she could be a dwarf gene carrier also, because Isaac is her grandfather too. And I have a theory about that, even though I can find no studies about it, because it's kind of a hard subject to figure out, that dwarf gene carriers, I think there may be some internal insufficiencies in some way, that they look normal on the outside, but there may be something that the dwarf gene does inside. But she is 6 years old, so I mean, she's lived longer than a lot of chickens already. But you know, she's been going on the nest a lot lately, and no eggs, so that's an ominous sign. And I have a feeling I have a broody. Brandy bit my husband yesterday. she's the sweetest hen I have, and she bit him when he tried to reach under her for eggs. And she's on the nest today, so I may have a broody now. Yay. Talk to y'all later. Bye.